Good morning. Happy Tuesday. All right, guys, let's jump into it. We're heading right into December. We're starting a new unit. It's called Unit 3. And what we are going to be talking, I feel like I want to sneeze. So sorry. Okay. What we are going to be doing, our week at a glance, um, just kind of reviewing expectations for class, knowing that um, when you log on, you are logging in and watching all the videos, reading all the instructions that are needed. I've gotten some emails from some of you about like instructions, but all of these instructions are in the videos if you watch them. So I'm hoping that you're watching this. Um, the other thing is to set up um, at least an hour a week for this class. But you're expected to do the 48 minutes of what each English student does in class. So really, you need to be setting aside, like, besides logging in on Friday, I would say each day an hour at least half an hour to spread out in your calendar for each class, not just my class, all the classes, okay? Because you are expected to be a student at home. So that means you need to make sure you're out of bed. Okay, I know if I'm in bed, I'm just going to go back to bed, right? You need to go sit up at the kitchen table, sit up, lean against the couch, and have your computer on a table, something to get you up and going, okay? Because, like Miss Estep said last week, it kind of gets, you know, cold and yucky out. So, we want to make sure that we are being good stewards of our education and taking charge for ourselves. So, we are going to be reading a short story today. I kind of lumped your Monday and Tuesday together. Um, it's called At the Crossroads, and we're going to be doing some annotations with me. I'll be leading it. We'll start that in a little bit because we're starting a new unit, and it's about what are some circumstances in people's life that suddenly cause their life to change or to make a life change for themselves. Um, for some people, it's the pressure that they have from parents. For others, it's anxiety or depression or mental health, right? For others, it's a new career change. For some, it's moving, right? There's a lot of big moments in our lives that cause our life to shift or change. So we're exploring what are some of those moments that cause a shift or change in people's lives. So that's our big essential question, which moves us into, get ready for a drum roll, a Christmas Carol. Okay, and we're going to be, I don't know if you've seen the movie or read A Christmas Carol before. It's been out for ages. Um, and it's by Charles Dickens. We will be reading the screenplay because our new objective is to be able to analyze how a play or text is impacted by the setting, stage directions, characters, all of that. So I'm really excited to start learning about the background of A Christmas Carol, which you will also begin today. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you will be reading on your own Act One, which there is an audio version for that you can listen to. So I will link that. Um, and then before break, the students in my class will have the chance to watch A Christmas Carol. The It's not Pixar, Disney version, the Jim Carrey Disney. And I will hopefully be able to send you guys a link so you can at least go check it out and watch it if you want before winter break here. So we're going to jump in to some new notice and notes. We've been looking at notice and note fiction. Today we're going to look at notice and note nonfiction. And I also have a bookmark here that I might be referring to. Students in class have this. The same thing that's on your guys' slide here, but it's fiction or nonfiction and then fiction on this side. So we've already looked at aha moment, tough question, contrast, contradiction, again and again, words of the wiser, and memory moment. Today we're going to take a look at some new ones. So we have contrast, contradiction again, absolute or extreme language, numbers and stats, quoted words, and then word gaps. The nonfiction side, I feel like is a little easier. It's really self-explanatory. So I'm going to quickly go through those. Absolute language or extreme language. Absolute is using words like never, always. So for example, I never leave dirty laundry on the floor. False. Okay, I do. I always separate my darks and whites when I do laundry. Every time I do laundry, I fold up my clothes or hang them up. I could say that, but it's probably not true. And I only do laundry with my husband. No. Okay. A lot of these I could say I wish they were true. Okay. I wish my husband helped me with laundry. Actually, he's the one doing laundry most often. He probably wants my help. But absolute language is kind of tricky because it can catch you in a lie, right? Like you can't always or never, right? It's very absolute. It's black and white. And there's a lot of gray area in life. Extreme language is just exaggerated phrasing. Like, it was so cold, it felt like icicles were hanging off my nose, right? Or it was so hot, exaggerating. If you hear like your grandparents tell of a fishing story, the fish was so big, it didn't even fit on the scale, right? Um, Word gaps, these are unknown words or technical terms. So, my dad recently got Snapchat, right? It's his first smartphone, and I just think it's funny because I said something like, okay, well, I taught him the basics, and then I said, all right, I will snap you later. And he was like, you'll what? And he's like, snap you later. And I said, no, not like snap. It's a verb that you use when you're Snapchatting. It's like, I will snap you, like I will text you. So that was a word gap for him because he didn't know before he downloaded Snapchat, like it's a generational word, right? Or it's a technical term for social media. Just like if you're parents, you might hear them talking about their jobs, whatever profession they have, and there's some words in there that my dad was a mechanic, and so growing up, I heard a lot of terms for car parts and things. I had no clue what they meant, but they were technical terms related to his job. Okay. Quoted words are words that are quoted by any person in the story, any person of authority. Numbers and stats, it could be dates, it could be days, months, years, the time of day or year again. Percentages, everyone got 98% on the math test. Could be measurements, ounces, pounds, miles, right? Distances, any number, okay? And usually they tell us there's numbers because we have to think, why did the author use these numbers? I'm not sure. Contrast, contradiction, it's the opposite of what we would expect to happen. We have to think, what's the difference and why does it matter, right? So that the last one was a review. So using these notice and note signposts, we are going to jump into today's story, okay? And, whoops, I'm going to be using the ladybug here. I think I need to get a Kleenex. I am just like allergies today. It's kind of bad. I'm sorry. I don't know if there is one. I might have to go without. My goodness. Okay, well, we're on a Kleenex shortage here in the office. Not good. Not good at all. Okay, so this is called At the Crossroads. See if you can see this, okay? It's an example of an explanatory text, which is a type of writing in which the author shares detailed information about a topic or process. This is the type of writing you will develop, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to skip that part. As you read, notice the author presents facts without offering opinions or arguments. So it's not opinionated and there's no arguments in here. It's just facts about his life and his journey. And we want to be thinking to ourselves. Our big question in this unit is, what is a moment in life that affects or makes a change? Okay, so we want to be thinking that. I'm going to actually write that. What can cause a significant change in someone's life? Okay, what can cause a significant change in someone's life? We're going to find out here. And as I read, we're going to read it through once, and then we're going to, oh goodness, we're going to annotate. In April of 2012, 25-year-old Nick Kleckner was working as an electrician and cab driver in Northern California. And then suddenly he found himself at a crossroads. He left it all, his job, his family, his friends, and bought a one-way plane ticket to Jacksonville, Florida. He had a bold plan in mind. He was going to walk to California with virtually nothing on his back. He hoped the journey would change his life, but he had no idea how. Okay, so right away I noticed some numbers and stats. He's 25 years old. This takes place in 2012, so NS for numbers and stats. His name is Nick. So his job was electrician and cab driver in California. So this is like the setting. This is where he was living. And then suddenly, when I see the word suddenly, it's kind of an aha moment. He's realizing something. He found himself at a crossroads in life. He left all of that and went to Florida. So I'm just making the connection for myself. Lived in California, bought a plane ticket down to Florida. Okay. And then his plan was to kind of like Forrest Gump, walk back to California with virtually nothing. That's kind of exaggerated language. Virtually nothing. So I'm going to put EL for exaggerated language. He hoped his journey would change his life, but he had no idea how. This reminds me of Forrest Gump, kind of. So I'm going to write Forrest Gump. Okay. Nick, who was not exactly prepared, had nothing in the way of survival skills. Nothing is absolute language. So I'm going to label that absolute language. He had nothing in the way of survival skills, so he planned to survive on the goodness of the people he met on the road. Wow. I don't know if I would have faith in people on the road because you hear about those scary news stories. So I'm going to say that's a contrast contradiction because he had no survival skills, but he just depended that people would be good to him on the road. It's kind of a safety issue, right? Using the handle hobo neck. I don't get that, using the handle. I think of handle as door handle. Handle. Oh, this is a word gap. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a Twitter handle, kind of like a username. So using the username, using the username Hobo Nick, Nick began his journey on April 5th, leaving Jacksonville, Florida with a backpack, a sleeping bag, and a travel kit. He also had an iPod. One of my classes did not know what an iPod was. So this might be a word gap for you. It kind of surprised me, and I felt really old, even though I'm only 30, almost 30. Okay. So, wow. He had an iPod and the ability to receive internet service. I'm going to say thank goodness because I would not be able to survive in his shoes. Throughout the journey, he would document his experience in minute detail. Now, this also could say minute, but the difference is when it says minute detail, it's an adjective describing the detail. So, minute means very specific. So minute, go ahead and say that. Minute, not minute, minute, but spelled the same. He would document his experience in minute detail and send daily updates to his mother, who'd post them on his blog. The question is, why? What would make someone take off like that? That is a what kind of signpost? I'm going to say it's a tough question. Tough question. Why would he take off like that? Nick had a comfortable life. He had a good income, a house, a new car, a new motorcycle. Oh, I saw a lot of again and agains. Nick had, he was, and then new and new. A lot of again and agains. I have to ask myself, why is that being repeated? Because he had all this stuff. He was moving forward with his life. By society standards, he should, there's another he should have been happy. But when I see a big but, LOL, this should be a contrast contradiction. He should have been happy by society standards, but he wasn't. That's why the again and again was repeated. He had this, he had that, he had, but he still wasn't happy, right? Materialistic things don't always buy happiness. It could buy instant happiness, but it doesn't buy lasting happiness, right? Nick was in a rut. His life felt repetitive and boring. It lacked a higher purpose. He felt he wasn't growing as a person. He had things, but didn't appreciate them. It got to the point where I couldn't deal with everything anymore. I would say this is a quoted word, Nick said later. I felt a lot of pressure, stress, and anxiety and decided to get out. So he ultimately got out. This is quoted words. Why is this quote important? Because he just felt like he didn't belong in his life in that way. He felt like he needed to leave his job and get out of probably social media, get out of mainstream living, right? Kind of go off grid, as they say. As Hobo Nick, he trekked, I would say that's an exaggerated language. He trekked across miles of scorched desert. Ooh, scorched desert would be exaggerated. And endured nights of pounding rain. I would say all of this is exaggerated language because they could have said he just walked, he trekked. In the towns and cities, he slept on the street where he knew that there were people to help him out. I don't know, that seems scary to me that he knew people would help him out, but like I guess as a woman I think differently. I kind of think on the news how some people aren't going to be that nice, random strangers. Even with help, it was a hard journey. Nick would sometimes go days without food or search dumpsters for things to eat. Wow. Notice I'm marking things that aren't necessarily signposts, but they're just my reactions. But whenever he felt that he had more than he needed, there's another big but. But whenever he felt that he had more than he needed, he decided to pay it forward by giving to other folks he encountered on his way. Paying it forward was one of Nick's goals on his journey, giving more than he received. That's awesome. But it's a contradiction because of the big but, right? So we expect if he's given food and he doesn't have food that he's going to keep it, but he gives it away. And we see this again and again of this notion of paying it forward, right? Which is pretty cool. He was surprised at people's generosity along the way. I would say that's kind of an aha moment. He didn't expect it. But I also think it's a contradiction because it does say he knew there were going to be people to help him out. But then he says he was surprised at their generosity. So I also think it's like an aha, he was surprised, but it's also contradicting because here he's like, I knew there'd be people to help me, but yet I'm surprised, right? He was surprised at people's generosity along the way. There was a time in Mississippi when the cars actually pulled over to the side of the road to check on him and give him money. The experience taught him a valuable lesson. I feel like this is going to be important here, so I'm going to get out my highlighter. If you share what you have and help others as much as possible, you will never be stranded. And never is an absolute language. Absolute language. You will never be stranded. This is kind of words of the wiser, right? It's a life lesson. In his blog, Nick chronicled the important changes brought about his selfless lifestyle and rejection of material things. I would say chronicled is a word gap here, meaning he just wrote um, down each event by time. Oh, I put WP. I meant WG, word gap. Selfless, rejection, those could be exaggerated language. He's learned to live in the moment and to be thankful for everything he has. Good life lesson. On September 29th, after an epic 2,500-mile walk, wowza, those are some numbers and stats, across the North America continent, Nick managed to make it all the way to Huntington Beach, California. So he did make it back. More than 100 family members, friends, and well-wishers were waiting for him. During the 6 months of his journey, he destroyed 5 pairs of shoes and lost about 55 pounds. Numbers and stats. Why do we think that he would tell us that the author would tell us that he went on a 6-month journey, destroyed 5 pairs of shoes, and lost 55 pounds? Just think to yourself. I think because it shows how dedicated he was to this, so he could learn from this going back to California and I guess humbling himself on his about his journey. Um, you know, he was very dedicated. He lost that much weight. And not on purpose, I'm sure, but just through the trekking through this journey of his life. 5 pairs of shoes. That also makes me think, I wonder how much money he was carrying on hand because 5 pairs of running shoes are pretty expensive. And if he left a lot of stuff behind, I'm wondering how, if people were generous and bought him new shoes when they heard about his story, or if he took money with him. Not sure. It doesn't really say if he took his life savings with him before he left either. In the future, Nick plans to do another cross country trip. The point is always to give more than you take, he says, adding that, I'm going to highlight these quoted words, adding that the biggest takeaway from this experience is to have realized that mankind is better than I ever dreamed. So, kind of corny at the end, quoted words, but he realized in the end, most people are willing to help others in life, right? That's kind of his takeaway that he learned. Most people are willing to help, which is really neat. And going back to this big question, what can cause a significant change in someone's life? For Nick, it was not feeling happy with all of his materialistic things that he had, his job, not feeling a sense of purpose or fulfillment in his life. And so that's kind of what caused his change to do something about it and say, guess what? I'm going to take this trip. I'm going to make it life changing, and reflect on my life and see what needs to change when I come back. Right. And we don't necessarily get to hear about that. I'm curious if he goes back to his job now, or if he, if he lives more minimalistically, gets rid of his motorcycle, his new car. Does he choose to walk everywhere now? We don't know. So very interesting. All right, there is a quick write to do today with this. And the quick write will be on Schoology here for you, okay, because you don't have this paper. But you're going to consider the story that I just read to you, and you're going to write as much as you can. What do you think can cause a significant change in someone's life? What is an event or moment that causes a change in a person's life? So it could be a personal experience that you write about. It could be just in general what you think about human beings and changes that happen in life, and when you think these moments happen. Like, do you think it happens in people's 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, after they have kids, before they make college decisions? So I just want you to dialogue your thoughts here, okay? And I'm asking for at least a paragraph, okay? So at least 5 sentences. But if you want to write a page, go for it. You're going to write for a full 10 minutes on the timer, okay? So just put your phone on for 10 minutes, and I want you to write what could cause a significant change. I will post that writing prompt on Schoology, okay? The second thing you're going to do today is there is a Christmas Carol web quest, because we're going to start a Christmas Carol tomorrow. So this is on Schoology as well. You're going to click here, and it will take you to this website where you have to enter to read through and answer these questions, because I want you to know about the setting and the time period, the place, the background information of our author, Charles Dickens, before we get into the Christmas Carol. Okay, because it is actually an old passage, and you'll find out how old. And just some interesting information during the time period. So you have a quick write to do, and then you have a Christmas Carol web quest to complete by tomorrow, because then we'll start reading A Christmas Carol, and I'll provide the audio for you guys. So happy learning. Do good things.